Hey, Torbatai. A friend of mine called today asking me a question, which is, that he's building a new house, whatever, something like that, and he's making a special arrangement there with the boiler, so he wants to use the hot water on Shabbat, he wants to use it. So he spoke to me about several things, that this involves. So what he did was that he made a boiler, with a tub. So what he wants to do is he wants to close down the boiler on Shabbat. Like first heat up the water on Friday, make it really, really hot, and then close it. So it's not going to work on Shabbat, the boiler. You understand? It's just going to retain the heat, the hot water in the tub, because he wants to use it for Shabbat. This water. What does he want to do? Wash dishes. Right, something like that. But then he told me also he wants to do another thing, which is that he wants to also take a shower, hot shower. Oh, right, so is this allowed on Shabbat to do this? This is the question, right? So the truth is that when it comes to the boiler, we spoke about this, I think, once or twice. But I'll just review the whole thing here. That when it comes to a boiler like this, where there's a tub, with hot water. The problem is, that when you open the tap to get your hot water in the house, what happens is that cold water comes in, It has to push out that water. How does it push it? By bringing in cold water into the tub. So what happens is that cold water gets cooked by the hot water. This is the problem, you see? It gets cooked. Because that water is very, very hot. So little water comes in, cold water, and boom, bishul. It gets cooked. So this is the reason why we don't use, the hot water tap on Shabbat. We don't open. But what happened was that about 10 years ago, more than 15 years ago, Maran Rabbi Danielov, before he passed away, he wrote books on Shabbat, and over there he said that whoever wants to open the hot water tap on Shabbat, he has what to rely on. Yesh al ma lismoch. He has what to rely on. To use it, for washing dishes and stuff like this. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion, right? Why it's allowed to do that. It's a whole big discussion, Maybe we should avoid that right now. This is not the time for that, but because it's very complicated. But anyway, the point is, right, that he allowed this, and he said it was tov le'achamir. It's good to be machamir, but whoever wants to do it can do. So therefore, I told him, I said, listen, when it comes to that, right, there's definitely room to be lenient, to open the hot water tap to wash dishes. When you have a tub like that with a thermostat. But then I told him like this, when it comes to taking a shower, that's a different story, right? Because the rabbis were gozer, they decreed that you're not allowed to take a hot shower on Shabbat. Everybody knows this, right? Nobody takes a hot shower on Shabbat. I hope you don't, because you're not really allowed to do it. And the reason is why, because they say, right, the Chazal, that what happened was, that in those days they had the, bathhouse, right? Abano, bathhouse. So they would go there, and the thing was that the attendants over there, people who are working there, the gabbai, whatever, of the bathhouse, right? He was cheating. So what was he doing? He was cooking the water on Shabbat, heating the water on Shabbat, which is not allowed, right? And he was telling them, no, I don't do it. But then they looked, they checked, and they saw they are doing it. They're cheating, these people. So that's why the rabbis made a gezerah, don't take a hot bath on Shabbat. Because the truth is that if it wasn't for this, it would be allowed. Why? Because if you heated the water before Shabbat and you're using it now, it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But the rabbi said, you see, they're cheating, They're telling us they don't heat the water on Shabbat. But the truth is that they do. They're cheating. So therefore the rabbis made a decree, don't use hot water to bathe on Shabbat, your whole body. That's what I told him. I said, you're not allowed to do that, so on Shabbat, you're not allowed to take a hot shower. But then he told me, he continued to discuss this with me, he has his own, ideas, he's a smart guy, smart. So he said something interesting, right? He said, listen, with all due respect, I apologize if you don't get offended, but you know what happens, right? That a person who's married, he wants to be with his wife on Shabbat. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is a mitzvah, by the way. It says in the Shulchan Aruch, it's a mitzvah to be with your wife on Shabbat. This is the best time. Oneg Shabbat, right? So he says, I'm with my wife, and then I want to go in the morning, to Shachrit. So I don't want to go like this, I want to first take a shower, to be clean. It's not respect. He's right. He's right. It's not so nice, So then, after he told me this, I said, wait a second, I have a solution for you. I can solve your problem, no problem. You know what the solution is? Here's the thing, right? Because this guy tells me, he's very sensitive, He grew up in America, Americans are very sensitive, He's Bukharian, but he grew up in America, So in America, everybody's very sensitive, If you don't take a shower every day, it's like, you died, lo aleinu, right? It's like, you don't get a shower every day, So he tells me, he says, I'm very sensitive, I need a shower. I can't live without that. Okay, so I tell him, I said, okay, I have a solution for you. So I told him, I said, you're sensitive, right? If you don't take a shower, you don't feel good, you don't want to go to shachrit like this. After you lived with your wife. You know what I mean? So, okay, I understand. So I told him, I said, there's a solution for you. You know what the solution is? It says in the Rambam that a person who's mitzta'er, he's allowed to take a hot shower on Shabbat, as long as the water was heated before Shabbat. Right? Because obviously you can't heat the water on Shabbat. That's what it says in the Rambam. So he tells me, he says, oh, Rabbi, that's nice. He says, okay, can you send me, So I sent it to him, on the WhatsApp. I sent him the Rambam. Maybe he didn't believe me. I don't know. Maybe he thought I was kidding him, I was joking, I sent him the Rambam. And then I also, found in the Shulchan Aruch also, same thing. I sent him the Shulchan Aruch. Then I sent him also Chazon Obadiah, Maran Obadiah Bashul. He also wrote before he passed away, he wrote about Shabbat, as I told you, in volume 6, Chelek Vav. He wrote over there the same thing like that. So you see, right, the poskim, they do allow. This is something known. It's very well known. That somebody who mitzta'er. So what's mitzta'er? He's suffering, If he doesn't take a shower, he feels dirty. Yeah. We spoke about that. We spoke about that too. Okay, yeah. We spoke about that. So dud shemesh is good because it doesn't get heated by the esh. It's from the sun. That's much better. We don't have that over here. Over here we don't have it. So dud shemesh is much better. You're right. Dud shemesh is much better. The truth is, the Ashkenazim, they don't use dud shemesh on Shabbat. They're machmir. But we do. We Sfaradim, we do use it. But the Ashkenazim, they're machmir. They don't like to use it. Okay, whatever. Everybody has their own minhag. I'm not talking about that. But anyway, right? Here we don't have dud shemesh. So we don't have this, issue. But anyway, right? What we're talking about. The solar heating, right? The sun, I'm talking about. Probably the reason why they don't have it here is because the sun is not so strong, so it's not gonna do much. But over there in Israel, the sun is very strong, so it heats up a nice big tub of water every day. Especially in the summer. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. So what I told them was like this, because you're mitzta'er, it bothers you. So the rule is like this, it's written down. It's written down like this. If you're a mitzta'er, it bothers you, you need to take a shower because you don't feel uncomfortable. And this guy, after he was with his wife, he doesn't feel good, like this. To go like this to shachrit. So he's mitzta'er. He has tsar. He has, he's uncomfortable like that. So I told him, for you, it's allowed to do this. It's all right. That's all right. So the truth is, it's not only for him. Anybody who's mitzta'er, he has some kind of a problem. This happens in the summer, to the young guys, right? Like you, How old are you?
28.
Yeah, guys like you. Young guys, they sweat a lot, They have a lot of perspiration. When you get older, you sweat less. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Ask the doctor. I don't know. But this is the way it is. Okay? So what happens is like this, right? That when you're young, especially in the summer, it's so hot, you sweat, you feel terrible, very uncomfortable. So a person, especially American guy who grew up in America, right? He's mitzta'er. He doesn't feel good like that. I personally, in my age, I'm 59. Right? For me, it's not a problem. I don't. It doesn't bother me. At my age, doesn't bother me. But when I was young, like his age, it really bothered me. Sweat. It's different. So I don't do it. I don't need it. But maybe he needs it. So anybody who's mitzta'er, because of whatever it is, right? The sweat or he lived with his wife, whatever it is, right? Or he got dirty, he got filthy, whatever. He's allowed to take a shower on Shabbat as long as the water was heated before Shabbat. That's the thing, right? So this is allowed not only for somebody who's mitzta'er, as we said, right? Also, it's allowed for two other people. Who is that? The child, tinok, right? Somebody who's not, a young kid, not bar mitzvah. He's allowed also. You're allowed to bathe him on Shabbat. Why? Because the child is like, sick also, like, in other words, he's very sensitive, So we call that like he's like sick, He's like choleh. And also the sick person as well. So those three people, right, we allow. It says the Rambam. Person who's mitzta'er, right, uncomfortable, or he's sick, or number three, child, right. Those three we allow. But everybody else, we don't allow, right, to do a hot shower. But what you are allowed to do is take a cold shower if you want, that's okay. I mean, cold shower, cold shower is okay. But you cannot take a hot shower or also not a warm shower. Warm is also not allowed because warm and hot is the same thing. That's the thing, yeah.
Usually hot water doesn't stay hot for long.
Yeah.
Second one, it's about wiping yourself with towel.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do?
Good question. Okay. Good. I like this. This is good. Okay, so the truth is, that some of those tanks, where the water is, they're very well insulated, so it stays hot for many hours. You know what I mean? Depends, how good the insulation is.
Usually not.
I mean, what can I tell you? I personally, I'll tell you. Hear me out. When I was in Israel, the Dud Shemesh, right, the sun, was heating the water good on Friday. When I would wake up in the morning, it was still hot, the water. You know why? Because it's good insulation. It's very well insulated. That's the thing, So there is some hot water left. Okay, whatever. It's all discussion, in itself. But regarding what you said about the towel, right? What do you say? You have an answer for that? What about the towel? So the answer is, that what is really forbidden, with the towel? It's not forbidden to dry yourself with a towel. It's forbidden to squeeze the towel, and the water comes out like this, Schita. That's what's forbidden, But just to, like this, no problem. No problem with the towel to do. When you wash your hands, right? You don't dry your hands with a towel? Same thing, right? So same thing over here also as well, What's the problem? No problem. The only thing which is not allowed is to squeeze, That's something else. That's not allowed. But just to, gently, right? Dry yourself, no problem. Especially with the towels that we have today, right? Which they're very thick, They absorb very well. Right? They're like, they can hold a lot of water. So it's not gonna squeeze out. So that's why it's okay. Okay. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנן שומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא להוסיף לישראל, לפיך הכי בא להם תורה ומצוות, שלמען לא יחפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.